Oh boy, it's the Mega Man. Wait, this isn't Mega Man? Shovel Knight is a retro action platformer made by Yacht Club Games, a group of former WayForward developers. Shovel Knight gained popularity on Kickstarter and reached high above its base goal. The hype train for this game was enormous, and for good reason, because this game is fantastic. The second you jump into the game, even the title screen, it all feels like an NES game. The graphics, the gameplay, the music, every part of the game screams nostalgia, and even some of the finest details that you won't notice are intentional. Shovel Knight is a platformer heavily inspired by those in the days of old. I'm sure it's easy to identify that the most influential is Mega Man. You play as Shovel Knight, who must fight the 8 Knights in the Order of No Quarter. The game is, like I said, a platformer with physics quite similar to Mega Man. However, unlike Mega Man, you wield a shovel, which you swing around to attack enemies. It can also be used like a pogo stick, after jumping to bounce on enemies, which will also damage them. Levels are split up by a world map that you progress through by beating the levels. Within the map are also bonus stages, mini-bosses, and towns. A lot of these designs look similar, don't they? Indeed, in addition to the levels having a Mega Man feel to them, the world map is from Mario Bros. 3, the towns are like from Zelda 2, and the pogo mechanic reminds you exactly of DuckTales. Shovel Knight may appear like it is trying to reference anything and everything NES, but this wasn't the vision of Yacht Club. They didn't make Shovel Knight so you think of Zelda 2 or DuckTales or even Mega Man. No, they made Shovel Knight so you think of Shovel Knight, a game that very well could have been on an NES. So the Mega Man or other game parallels? Sure, they exist, but Yacht Club isn't trying to make Mega Man 11. Shovel Knight takes inspiration from old games, but isn't directly copying them, like the pogo concept. See, in DuckTales you had infinite pogo ability. Anywhere you were, you could bounce. On the enemies, on the ground, and on obstacles. With Shovel Knight you can only pogo on enemies and obstacles, but not on the ground. Yacht Club didn't think that pogoing on the floor with a shovel would have fit their game, so they didn't include it, because they weren't trying to copy DuckTales or even necessarily reference it. There's a difference between following game designer ideas, and improving them or making them unique. And just copying game designer ideas because they're general concepts that are good game design. Both of these are good ways to design a game, and one isn't necessarily worse than the other, unless it's just blatant copying. But Shovel Knight is indeed the former, taking ideas and improving them or making them unique to fit the vision of the developers. And I think this fact is actually why it's so highly praised. It doesn't try to feed off of your want for nostalgia, no, instead it gives you new content that still gives you the sense of what you're nostalgic about. People enjoy how much Shovel Knight feels like an NES game, not that it feels like Mega Man 11, or DuckTales 3. Yacht Club manages to do so much with this game, with many great concepts within the overall game and just within individual levels. First of all, let me explain the life mechanic of this game. You have a life bar that depletes as you take damage, and when it reaches 0, you die. Alternatively, if you touch spikes, much like in Mega Man, you instantly die. However, unlike Mega Man, this game doesn't just have 2 checkpoints, in the middle and just before the boss. No, in Shovel Knight you get at least 5 or 6 checkpoints throughout the stage. However, they've added a little more depth to the checkpoint system. You can choose to destroy the checkpoint, and it will give you a large amount of gold, generally based on the difficulty of what is beyond the checkpoint. But, if you destroy it, that checkpoint is no more, and if you die, you have to go as far back as the last existing checkpoint is. And if you've destroyed them all, you might find yourself back at the beginning of a level just before finishing a boss. This risk versus reward is a genius concept, and only the most skilled players will be able to reap the rewards of checkpointless runs. And dying does have its consequences. Besides just a matter of if you destroyed your checkpoints or not, when you die you lose gold, which then appears where you died from in the form of bags. You can collect these bags, recollecting your lost gold, but if you die again, those bags of gold are lost, and then you lose even more gold. This mechanic is what creates fury in players of Shovel Knight, and the idea of losing so much hard-earned gold can really make a moment intense if it's an instance where you can die. This mechanic also makes the checkpoint system more brutal. If you break a checkpoint and then die, you have to go way back, and have to make it not just back to that checkpoint, but back to your bags of gold, which can be daunting for those struggling in a level and who foolishly destroyed their checkpoint. With the towns, like I explained, they took Zelda 2 to a whole other level. The characters that walk by you actually show expressions and emotions, unlike these guys. These NPCs add a bit of entertainment to the game with hilarious dialogue that matches the expressions they show when you aren't even talking to them. One of the characters is just a frog that tells jokes. Furthermore, within the town, there is a shop for purchasing health and magic upgrades, as well as trinkets, which I'll get back to later. There's also a pots minigame, which you try to hit pots at these targets, and try to get the most points. It didn't leave me wanting to play it again after playing it once, which rewards you with a quest item. However, others may find it more entertaining. Overall, to me, this minigame doesn't feel needed, but if you enjoy those extra minigames thrown in for fun, you'll probably enjoy it. Anyways, another interesting part in the town is the bard who will play the game's soundtrack for you if you have it unlocked. You unlock the soundtrack as music sheets by finding them hidden throughout the game, and they are a very large side quest within the game. This is another negative note, but I genuinely hate this overall concept. I never understood why game developers include a jukebox within the game. Like, I'm not playing the game to listen to its soundtrack. I guess what I'm more upset about is the fact that the music sheets are a primary item and side quest within the game. Because I dislike the jukebox concept in games, the music sheets don't feel rewarding to me. When I find them, my reaction is, oh great, this thing again. It doesn't get me enthusiastic that I found this item because it doesn't appeal to me. There's no value to it unless you enjoy a jukebox in your game. Furthermore, the issue I have can be connected to the store within the town. You can buy upgrades for magic and health, and to me personally, these rewards don't feel valuable. They could have fixed this easily by replacing the music sheets with the health and magic upgrades. Why do I need to buy them in a town when it feels much more rewarding to discover them out in the game, in secret hidden coves and areas that require my cunning to obtain, which is wasted by the music sheets? I believe that the health and magic upgrades shouldn't be purchased within a town, but should instead replace the locations of the music sheets. Finding something that improves your character out in the adventurous world of Shovel Knight feels more rewarding than purchasing it within a laid-back town area. Now I understand this can be debated by the fact that the upgrades are overall obtained via gold, which are the primary currency within the game. And just like the music sheets can be found in hidden areas, gold in larger amounts can be found too. And I agree, the hidden gold does feel rewarding, and by extension feels rewarding to spend it. However, there are trinkets that you purchase within the towns and within the levels. Why not parallel the trinkets you purchase out in the levels with purchasing magic and health out in levels? Ultimately, I think that the design of music sheets hidden in levels and health and magic upgrades isolated to one general location feels backwards. It could have easily been switched. Essential upgrades to Shovel Knight feel all the more special when you go out and discover them yourself, instead of just having them handed to you in the shops. The shops themselves aren't bad, but Yacht Club's implementation of what you buy where I dislike. Did I say I was going to talk about trinkets? Don't worry, I didn't forget. Trinkets are additional items Shovel Knight can use, an arsenal of sub-weapons, much like Castlevania games. Items range from a fire rod that you can fire at enemies, an anchor that you can fire in an arcing motion, a fishing rod useful for picking up lost gold, and jars that hold ichor, one-time usable potions of 3 different variations, either healing you, making you attract nearby gold, or making you invincible for 10 seconds. These trinkets use up your magic and are generally found out within the levels individually, for purchase. I never really use the trinkets that often in Shovel Knight, save for the ichors. I'm mostly stuck with using the anchor if at all, but that's just it. Trinkets are a side weapon, and it's the player who can decide which ones are useful and which ones aren't. In fact, I found little places where it seems like trinkets may have not been intended in levels, way before you even find them, where it would have had a use. Furthermore, like I said, there are a couple bonus stages laid out along the map that require a specific trinket in order to progress. They usually yield quite a lot of gold, but also show you good examples of when the trinket should be used, teaching the player when and where they can be effective. These stages are a good form of optional education of the player on the game. Okay, so I've talked about all these designs and concepts within the game, but what about the individual levels? Well, let me share some of my favorite levels and what within them makes them special. One of the first stages, you're in a castle, called Pridemore Keep. Still simple platforming, but we start to see more theming with medieval-style enemies. This level also has one of my favorite secret areas, accessible by a flip wall. You notice a wall with Shovel Knight's outline, so the obvious thing to do is fill the outline and then boom, it flips you into a secret area. It's just so entertaining to watch it happen before your eyes. It's in such a discreet area, you might not even see it. And the best thing is it's only in this one level. It doesn't become this overused or spammed mechanic that you're able to instantly recognize if it were in any other level. Next level is an underground volcano mine called Lost City. There's lava that kills you instantly like spikes, which I learned the hard way. There's also portions with a giant beetle that you have to ride on to continue. The noise he makes when you bounce on his back is the most satisfying NES soundbite ever. Now this stage is one of my favorites from a design perspective. So one of the first enemies is a fire blob. It looks exactly like the blobs from the first level, but on fire. As you start the level, whoa! There's a crack in the ceiling that drops lava. Well, there are some more of the green blobs like from the first level. And the lava drops on it, and now it's a fire blob. Okay, so cool, an enemy that has an evolved form that entirely makes sense in game design. But what's this? There isn't just lava in this mine. There appears to be green slime piles that you can bounce on, and oh, lava drops in it too and turns it into lava. Okay, so now we have an element design inspired by an enemy design. That's a little bit more deep thinking. But Yacht Club manages to take it even further. Later on you see more of the lava blobs, and now there's slime dropping from the ceiling much like the lava, and whoa! The slime turns the fire blobs back into green blobs. This is a full circle of implementing a design in not just an enemy, but a platform element as well. This balance of lava and slime is probably the best game design within Shovel Knight. As a little intermission, there is a mini stage called the Hall of Champions, a little bit more than a bonus level before the next step. The actual purpose of this level is to showcase a certain tier of Kickstarter backers. Yes, if you supported Shovel Knight with a certain amount, you would be able to be showcased in the game in a museum as an 8-bit portrait. The twist, though, to the player is that the museum is haunted and filled with the ghosts from the graveyard level. However, you now have a way to defeat them. The museum is filled with these glowing orbs that you can launch by attacking, and when you hit them, they'll release a wave in 4 directions that will kill the ghosts. The museum is split up into rooms, and has you clear out all the ghosts. Once they're all gone, the rooms light up, and you can see the portraits of the backers. Something I didn't notice until reviewing this, is that the initials of the people in the portraits are in the Fez alphabet language, in the Fez game, which is pretty awesome. This level is overall just a little intermission stroll for you to take and enjoy. It even includes a comedic jab at the Kickstarter trope of people backing a game without really knowing what they're supporting. The last stage is a flying airship called the Flying Machine. It's kinda got a reminiscent inspiration from the Mario Bros. 3 airship boss stages, but it's got its own style nonetheless. This level is unique in that it is much more vertical than the rest of the stages, which are more horizontally progressive. You start down on a mountain cliff just able to reach the airship. Then you climb up ladders, climbing higher and higher into the airship. The level's difficulty and design is primarily open areas with small platforms, including some that will drop over time, and plenty of enemies to get in your way. Special to this level are air fans that will blow you in whatever direction they're blowing, usually right off the platform you're standing on. Like I said, the stage is vertical, so if you fall down, you recede back into the earlier section. You may find yourself doing this often if you aren't careful. The stage also has a portion of the level with fierce wind that will blow you in any direction, sometimes requiring you to rely on the direction it will blow you in. So that's it. But why tell you just the little things about each level? Because that's what Shovel Knight is all about. Each level is unique, each level has its own feeling and style. The game manages to be its own thing, even in the individual levels. And it all comes back together to form an amazing retro game that feels right at home on the NES. Ultimately, Shovel Knight is just what people wanted this time, the heart and soul of the NES. I'm not trying to spoof or imitate those games from the days of old, but to be one of those games. Shovel Knight incorporates modern ideas, but these modern ideas are timeless and would have made just as much sense if such concepts were in Mega Man or Mario Bros. 3 or any NES game. This was the mindset of Yacht Club, to think like the past, not to see the DuckTales pogo and say, oh yeah, our game should have that because DuckTales is an NES game, but to see the DuckTales pogo and say, wouldn't it be silly to bounce with a shovel like a pogo stick? Yacht Club made Shovel Knight an original game, and a fun one. Shovel Knight is a fantastic, unique, and innovative game that feels like one of those genre-defining games themselves from the 90s. But hey, that's just my perspective.